On to Doug Waley now. Can you hear me, Doug?
Hi there, hear you loud and clear.
Good to hear you again, Doug. So you're going to be giving us an exciting update on public attitudes to aquatic animal welfare from around the world. So moving from the UK to the broader global spectrum. So I look forward to it.
Great, thanks. Yeah, good to see you again. Good to be with all of you today. Let me get my slide up and running here. Is that looking good for you, is it? Hopefully.
Yes, can see that perfectly. Thank you.
Great. So, yeah, thanks for having me. I'm Doug Waley. I'm the senior expert aquatic animals at Eurogroup for Animals. And we, if you don't know us, we are an animal advocacy organization, an NGO. And specifically, we're an umbrella organization based in Brussels. So we have over 100 animal advocacy groups, mostly around Europe, but also globally, who are our membership. And very proud that that includes Crustacean Compassion, who were just with us, and Shrimp Welfare Project, who were mentioned earlier. And we work on all animal welfare topics, farmed animals, animals in science, wild animals, and we have had an aquatic program since 2017 where we mostly work on aquatic animal welfare in aquaculture, but also in fisheries, which is what I'm focusing on today. And our main activity is political lobbying of the EU institutions for regulation and for other useful policy initiatives other than rules, and we have a networking function amongst our members as well. And today I'm going to present to you results from a survey that we carried out together with Compassion in World Farming, another one of our member organisations very active on aquatic animal welfare. And we had this survey carried out primarily to collect data that we can use in our own advocacy efforts. We wanted to find out about citizens' attitudes and try to gain some insights into how they can sometimes and possibly be changed. And our goal is to influence EU legislation, but also certification bodies and the kind of initiatives that, we've seen some great examples of corporate initiatives in the event today, and we would love to see more of those happening. So I've got five of the questions from our survey that I'm going to present to you today. And at the end, I'll give a little comment on our approach to policy and what sort of opportunities we see there. So this survey we had carried out, we worked with an experienced polling company based in Brussels called Sapiens to help us with wording the questions in a balanced way and getting through to a representative sample of respondents. And this was an online survey carried out in 12 countries total, 9 EU countries, plus the UK, plus the USA, and plus China. And I've got results from all of those to look at today. And the data was collected in March and April of this year. I'll say now the EU and UK results are published, and I think the US and China ones will be public soon, but I don't have a link for them just now. But during the break, I will log out. I'm on Zoom here, and I will come into the Vimeo event, and I'll put the links to the more results that I've chosen to talk about today. I'll put that in the chat. Sorry, I've only got two of the flags there. Please excuse that. It's yeah, the EU, UK, US, and China results we'll be having a look at today. So, first questions around what people know and understand about fish welfare and the sentience of fish, really, and some results that I to highlight here. So here's the EU and UK results. I'll put US and China to the same question up in a moment. big majorities recognizing that fish feel pain, 70+%, and then noticeably lower percentages of people who recognize or believe that fish feel negative emotions, around 60%, and then that fish are sentient. Interesting difference between the EU and UK here, 60% in the EU and 40% in the UK, and I would think that probably reflects people not being so familiar with the terminology and not knowing so much what sentience means. And then when we get on to more positive or maybe complex ideas about intelligence and positive emotions, it's down to sort of 50 and 45% of people recognizing this in fish. So getting significant, not a majority recognizing positive emotions, but still significant numbers of people. Excuse me. And in the US and China, notably the US has the lowest figures on all of these questions, but still a large majority, 64%, believing that fish feel pain. And yet lower figures on all the others, but still significant numbers of people. And in China, higher figures than the US. In many cases, in fact, the highest figures out of for all of these questions, and from all of the countries asked, and China has the highest level of recognition of pain experience, positive emotions, negative emotions, and a huge 82% in China recognizing that fish are sentient. Moving on here to a question about whether people think there should be protections and for the welfare of fish. And so we've asked, do you think they should be protected to the same extent as other animals that we eat, or to a greater extent, or to a lesser extent? And large majorities, that's in grey, showing the supporting the aquatic animals having the same level of protections as other animals that we eat, and in green there's a small minority for them to have even greater protections, and in yellow a minority who think that there should be less protections. Similar picture in EU and UK there. And then in the US and in China, smaller but still very large majorities supporting the same level of protections as exist for other animals we eat. A larger majority in the US who think there should be less protections, and in China a standout larger majority of people who want greater protections for the welfare of fish than other animals that we eat. Moving on to a question we asked specifically about people's support for a ban of live sale of aquatic animals, and this is something that we pursue as an organisation and think should be the case. And this question was asked slightly different in different countries, and in the EU results here, I'm showing you a split between the answers for fish and lobsters, which we asked separately. We thought there might be differing views, but in fact very strikingly similar answers, that 61%, a large majority, support a ban on live sales of fish and of lobsters in this case. And it's interesting to see much higher support for a ban for bans in Italy, Germany and Poland across those categories. And also interesting to see that some of the lowest support is in the Netherlands and Sweden, although still a majority supporting a ban of live sale. And in the US, a large minority is supporting a ban, and then significant numbers in grey there who don't know or who don't care. And 25 to 30% of people in the US firmly thinking that live sale of aquatic animals for food should continue. and an even stronger result in China in support of live sales continuing there. Significant majorities of people who think that live sale should continue, and I think reflecting there the widespread and normal practice of the live sale of aquatic animals in China compared to current practice and current markets in the other countries, and only around 30% of people in China supporting a live ban on live sales. Moving on to what consumers prioritize when they are selecting seafood products, fish and aquatic animals. I mean, these are questions that are commonly asked, and no surprises to anybody that freshness and quality and cost are top considerations. You'll see on the next slide that is the same in the US and China as well. And in fact, yeah, these are common survey questions, but it's very rare that welfare is included amongst this sort of common list of product characteristics. And we see that in the EU and the UK, the welfare of fish is not ranking in the top the top half factors. It's not up there amongst the top factors. But it is ranking higher than the location where the fish was caught, and it's ranking higher than the working conditions of fishers, which is significant. These are issues that have received significant attention and investment, and it's still a majority. It's over 50% of respondents considering that welfare has an impact. And in the US and China, meanwhile, welfare is the least of the considerations on people's minds when they're buying aquatic animals, but still with a majority of people saying that it's something they consider when they're buying. And then connect this with the last question that I'm presenting to you today. What associations does the consumer make between the word welfare and different product characteristics? And so these are responses that a large majorities of respondents have made. These aren't everybody, but in the EU and UK, when people hear the word welfare, then the first thing that means to them is that, in fact, the fish was well treated, and then they go on to associate that, have a strong association with high product quality, sustainability, better taste, food safety, and freshness. And in the US and China, the good treatment of fish was not amongst the top associations or considerations people had when they heard or saw welfare on the products. But again, when they hear welfare, they have very strong associations with high product quality, food safety, freshness, and taste. And so the message I want to give here is that the language of high welfare and welfare guarantees is a great message to have on your product to speak to consumers, because it tells them all the characteristics that they're looking for, the high quality, the freshness, the taste. So now I don't have a slide on our policy work, but I will just quickly mention that what we would like to see is and we have a very EU focus specifically, but we'd like to see EU fishery policy supporting the improved welfare standards in wild capture fisheries. And what we especially would like to see out of it is research funding being available and being directed towards the kind of projects that are being discussed today. And fishery policy, we'd also like to see it putting in place or having stronger market incentives, and that can be recognition through labeling schemes. It could be, in Europe we have this scheme for recognizing high quality products from certain regions, and if you're a terrestrial animal farmer with high welfare, that is your ticket in the door to that scheme, but that's not available for fisheries. We'd like to see it included in sort of EU initiatives that guide investors on what they should look for to know that they're making responsible investments. So these are all the kind of incentives and sort of soft policy initiatives that we would like to see, and the EU is just starting to review its common fisheries policy, and welfare has made it onto the agenda in that discussion. And my call to action to you today would be, tell your representatives that this is a good topic and that there are good approaches possible, and that you support that, and that you would like them to be putting constructive steps in place there as well. And finally, as well as the fisheries policy, we also look at animal welfare legislation and specific regulations and standards that could be made. And I think as we've seen today, there's a few examples that are sort of implementable and ready, but maybe we're further away on having a lot of rules made. I would highlight that the EU has a new animal welfare during live transport regulation. They've being discussed at the moment. They've published the proposal, and it is being considered and adapted, and that will come into force in future years. And crustaceans are in scope, and there's work going ahead to look at standards that could be put in place for the live transport of crustaceans, as well as some wild caught fish, for example, coming into aquaculture, like cleaner fish or cod or tuna that are being caught and brought into aquaculture. So yeah, thank you very much, and pleased to have any questions. Sorry about that fish.
Well, thank you very much, Doug. That was that was fascinating, and it was really interesting to see the quite big change from the last survey in terms of people's support for people's interest in protection. It used to be 75%? It's gone up to, was it 90% now?
79.
79%. Sorry.
In Europe.
Yeah, in Europe. And also, obviously cultural differences. Well, one thing that did shine out was China's general recognition that fish are sentient, which is far superior to any of the Western cultures. That was interesting, and it shows you the difference in attitudes towards animals in those different cultures.
Absolutely, and maybe connect that to the more live sales happening in China. Maybe people in China are closer to fish, probably, than we.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Many of us have been in Europe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No questions, just one remark. Doug, might it be worth considering how the survey results change with and without the don't know responses? Looks like China has the most green responses just because there are no gray responses. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, but
not specifically, other than we are working with partners and to do more analysis and hopefully publish a paper out of this study. So we will be having a good thorough look
more
at
in-depth analysis. Yep.
Thanks
because
for
to
that
make
suggestion.
to make it clear, you're not doing this research yourself, but it's a specialized bureau that does this surveys, right?
Right, yeah, we worked with a company called Sapiens, who are wizards at carrying out surveys and data analysis.
Yeah, good. All right.
I have one question for Doug, if I may.
Very quick.
I'll try my best. The question might be quick, but I don't know whether the answer will be. But you mentioned that the common fisheries policy is under review at the moment, and that you hinted that welfare was maybe being considered within that review. Can you enlighten us at all on what those considerations are and what impact it could have on the industry?
I can be very specific in that it's a very top level mention of the welfare of target species being relevant, and specifically that maybe I'm at risk of EU jargon, but the European Council, the member states, developed a paper together as a sort of instruction to the Commission kicking this off, and they said welfare is important, you need to include welfare in this, and the European Parliament did the same and said in their paper the welfare is important. You need to include welfare in this, and so the Commission has responded to that, and now in its documentation through the process, welfare is there as a concept and objective, and it hasn't got any more specific than that.
Okay, but it's certainly something to watch, keep a close eye on, and obviously it's yes, that's something we must do over the course of the next few years. So
Definitely.
Thank you very much, Doug. It was really a very interesting talk, and I look forward to meeting you up in person and chatting in much more detail about this in the future.